Hello everybody and welcome to another Starfield ship build tutorial. This video is made in response to multiple viewers asking me to make a version of the Corvette with a cabin on top of the ship, so special thanks to everyone for giving me feedback. I also tried reblending the audio so it should be loud enough in this video. As we take a look at the new design of the ship, there's some important things I need to mention. I discovered some super useful workarounds for ship design that allowed me to place cabins on the top closer than they normally can be. I'll also be showing these new mechanics briefly in this tutorial, but if enough people are interested, I may make another video going over my tips and tricks to designing ships in Starfield. That's going to be all for the intro, so let's move on to the ship breakdown. Like in my previous videos, I'm slicing the ship into all of its main layers so that you can snap them in place to make it even easier when you're building it. Luckily, if you watched the last video, almost all the parts are the exact same, so you won't need to go hunting for anything extra as long as you're at the Demos Star Yard. Now, if you haven't seen that video, that's totally fine. I'm doing a run over of all the parts right here, so you can follow along with building the ship as I do it. Also, I'll go over all the important details at the same time, so if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video whenever you need. Almost all the parts used in this build can be purchased at Demos Star Yard, and the rest can all be found at Aquila City. The parts that cannot be purchased at Demos are as follows: the landing bay, docking module, both rear landing gear, the ship's reactor, the shield generator, thrusters, the nose pieces, and the weapons. Each of the critical modules can be swapped for something else since I chose them strictly off of their look, so things like the reactor, shields, rear landing gear, and weapons could all be swapped for something available at Demos without changing the look of the ship very much. If you need to grab some of the parts from one place first, I'd recommend getting the ones from Aquila City because there's way less parts you'd need to transport. Lastly, the ship costs around 180,000 credits to build with no discounts, so hopefully you've got enough credits in the bank. I've had enough credits to do each of these builds just by my normal missions that I've done, so hopefully the credits aren't too difficult to get. If you can't get this spine to stay under the cabin, there's a reason for that, because the cabin's hitbox doesn't allow it, normally, at least. To start putting the ship together, we're going to select the top layer and move it onto the middle piece while leaving the cabin and its attachments on its own. The reason for that is if you try to place this particular cabin onto its lock point now, there is a hitbox collision as seen here. How we're going to work around this is using a technique I discovered thanks to making these ship guides. The technique is that certain items can be manipulated in the ship builder to negate the hitbox, one of which item is this Galleon Sierra 202 cargo hold. Now that we've moved that cargo module out of the way, we can select the cabin and lock it into place. From there, we'll grab this spine and go into the other technique I discovered, where despite the hitbox showing up as red, rotating the item on the lock joint and then deselecting the item locks it into whatever position it was rotated to. Before we get to the cargo module, you want to select the bottom portion of the ship and lock it into place. Now that the bottom is locked on, we want to select the cargo module and rotate the module, locking it onto the side of the bottom layer. Then move the camera to force the camera over the gap. Flip the module until it moves to the middle lock joint, overriding the hitbox, allowing you to now have that nice flat surface to look at. Finally, now that we've finished the building portion, you can move on to the design. I'm still going with that dark cobalt blue and white contrast to match that Demos vibe. The interior of the ship is pretty simple and has great connections that don't get too crowded. At the bottom you have the storeroom, infirmary, as well as direct connections from the dock and landing bay. Jumping to the middle section places you straight into a small 2x1 all-purpose hab. Besides that is the engineering section, specifically the B variation. Towards the nose of the ship is the crew quarters, and the back end is the command deck, placed underneath the main cabin as to make the most sense ergonomically. Climbing into the cabin level places you in another storeroom, followed by the Phobos cockpit. In the cockpit you get a phenomenal open view, making it so flying in first person or third person is entirely possible. Despite having 2230 cargo space, flight maneuverability is incredibly responsive, and depending on what weapons you use and how you place them on the Corvette, this is a great ship to use for whatever you need. Alright everybody, that's going to be the end of the video. Once again, I know I keep saying it, but I want to thank everybody that's been giving me feedback because I really appreciate it. All of the feedback is making me get better at editing and hopefully making the videos more enjoyable to watch. So if you haven't already, feel free to check out my channel. I've got a bit of other content you might be interested in and more to come, so I wouldn't want you guys to miss it. All that being said, thanks for watching this video. I appreciate it. I hope you guys take care, and I'll see you guys next time.